Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I am Danielle, aka Stitcherista here on YouTube, and today is Wednesday, July 13th. I'm off work today. Thank God. Yesterday was probably one of the worst days I've had in a really, really long time. So yesterday's deposition was in the same case as Monday. Monday I worked until 9:30 p.m. Yesterday, I worked until 10:15. Yeah. And I wasn't feeling good because of, the pain and swelling. So job starts at 11. I have to leave at 11:30 for my doctor appointment. And the doctor did diagnose blocked salivary gland, which is what I had thought. So she did give me an antibiotic just in case, because it seems like in that area, it's very hard for doctors to give a definitive diagnosis. So I'm taking the antibiotic just to be on the safe side, seriously. But it says it can last about a week. And what you're supposed to do is suck on sour candy because it will help you produce more saliva and it will unblock that. Massage, heat, and pain reliever. So I've been just taking a leave. I did get, thanks to Terry's suggestion, I did pick up some Warheads. Man, those are sour candy. I like sour candy, but these are actually my favorite ones that I got because these are sour consistently through the whole candy. Once you get through like the coating of the Warhead, it's not sour candy anymore. I also had some lemon heads, which are fairly sour. Trying to drink a lot of water, just trying to wait it out basically. So I got back from the doctor I was gone about an hour and a half by the time I went to the pharmacy and picked up the antibiotic and everything. So I get back and I'm like, why are they on a half-hour break? Because normally when they take breaks, it's like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. The witness had something that she had to do every couple of hours. So they took many breaks that were like that were like 30, 40 minutes. The witness also had a foreign accent, which was challenging. Which was challenging. And then right after one of the breaks, one of my team members says, there's no audio. So what I have to do to let my boss know that is threefold. First off, I call her and let her phone ring like twice and then I hang up because she's on the record. And she has her phone on Do Not Disturb, but my calls and texts go through because it's an emergency when I call her or text her while she's on the record. I texted her, and then one thing I do is I will change the entire transcript to italics. That's like a 911. So 5 pages go by, no audio. And she's like, is it fixed? No. 16 pages went by with no audio, which means we have to get the videographer's audio, backup audio, and I'm going to have to scope that. And so when they took a lunch break, they took an hour lunch break, I said, is there any way the videographer can get you the audio during the lunch break so I can do it then instead of trying to do it at 9, 10 o'clock tonight? Well, no, of course not. No. So we get past that for that moment. Then it bills home and it's time for me to take my car up to Honda because the air conditioning is broken. So I'm going like another 40 minutes, hour. Just like, oh my God. So then I come back. By the time I get back, it's like 4:30. And this wasn't feeling good. I was stressed from being gone from the job. 2 points of the day. I didn't take a break from like 4 until 8 o'clock, like literally. because I just had so much to do on that outside in the background, trying to answer emails for her. Just, it literally was too much yesterday. And I told my boss that. I'm like, today's just a bad day. And then at the end of the job, now today we were supposed to have another deposition in that same case, and it was the spouse of the person that was being deposed yesterday. The spouse comes in at the end of the job because they had been there the whole time and just like threw a fit and said, we have to leave. It was something so unheard of that I had never experienced. I mean, I've been doing this job like 22 years now. I had never experienced anything like that. So that was a very interesting way to end the day. And yeah, they didn't end until like 9:45 p.m. here, which was 8:45 there. And then I worked another half hour to finalize everything. I had to send a rough draft. I had to do all this stuff. And mind you, there were 59 exhibits from yesterday. Now, our proofreader normally will do the exhibit descriptions. Our proofreader has fucking COVID. Yeah. So she is still working while having that. And so I messaged her and I said, look, I'll help you tomorrow since we knew we weren't going to, they canceled the other person's deposition. Since we're not working today, thank God, I'll help you out. I'll do the exhibit descriptions, because to do exhibit descriptions for 59 exhibits, time consuming. It would have probably taken me like at least 45 minutes to do it. Well, my boss messaged me last night to ask what was going on with me medically, because I told her, I said, look, I'm at the end of my rope today. I said, I'm dealing with a medical issue that is very uncomfortable and painful. And yeah, so she messaged me very late, like 11:30, and said, are you all right? What's going on? And she said, I'll do the exhibit descriptions. Okay, great, because she goes, that way you guys can just be done with the job. So today I got to bed late. I got to bed like 12, and Bill said, don't worry about getting up and making his lunch, that he'll do it, because he knew the last 2 days have just been so long and arduous. So obviously no stitching. And somebody made a really good point. So somebody commented yesterday, I know I keep fooling with my hair, but I'm still getting used to it. Anyway, somebody commented and said, you don't owe us any explanation as to why you didn't stitch. She's right. She's right. But I feel a little bit of an obligation, considering I come on here every single day, 5 days a week. I'm going to aim in the future to do it Monday through Friday, where I think I'm going to aim to try to take weekends off. If you do get a video from me on the weekend, it's because I had time and I wasn't really, you know what I mean? It's going to have to be like a spur of the moment thing. I'm not going to press myself to do a video on Saturday, because believe it or not, on the weekends, it's actually very difficult. And next week I leave for the retreat on Thursday. So you won't have a video from me Thursday or Friday of next week. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I will do a retreat vlog, because I do that every time I go to a retreat. But that won't be back on my channel till Monday. So I wound up eating a peanut butter sandwich for dinner last night, because I didn't eat till like 10:30. Yeah. And then went to bed. I slept in till like 7:30, and that is sleeping in for me. And then just got up and piddled around. And so I finished the book that I was reading, which is, what was it? Mother of All Secrets. Very good. I highly recommend reading that. I like that one. So the book I've started reading, which I have to pay for, I'm still in the sample. It is by Carol Goodman. It is her newest release, called The Disinvited Guest. I have read every single one of Carol Goodman's books. I like to say that it's like gothic mysteries. Her books are really good. So this one, the premise is Lucy Harper still has traumatic memories and lingering health problems from the 2020 pandemic. So when a new virus surfaces years later, She and her husband Reed seek refuge on his family's private island off the coast of Maine. Ostensibly safely sequestered with their 5 closest friends and family, Lucy should feel at ease. So why does she feel the weight of the island's dark history pushing down on the group? As Lucy uncovers Reed's family secrets and the island's history as a quarantine hospital for typhus patients, she becomes obsessed with the past and feels her own grip on reality slipping. Tempers flare, strange signs appear in the woods, and accidents turn deadly. Is the island haunted by the dead, or is someone amongst the living taking their revenge? Everything is always explained in Carol Goodman's book, so I have no doubt that this is going to be explained. And so far, I'm only on chapter 3. So the book is set in the year 2030, so it's 10 years after the pandemic. And there's another pandemic happening. And I'm like, oh my God, she probably got the idea to write this book in 2020 with everything that happened. I guarantee it. So I will link the book down below. I thought today we would do another true crime story because I have time. Why is there who's sending me text messages? Oh, nobody. Yeah, no. All right, so we're going to do another cold case. So I like those because they're solved. Okay, this one is called Murder at the Mall. First, let's do the Unfuck Yourself entry for today. Don't tolerate a life of I'm not smart enough or I don't fit in, even when those very thoughts are running through your head. Remember, you are not your thoughts. I like that because, yeah, don't believe what your mind. Well, now, certain instances when your spidey sense is tingling and, yeah, trust your instinct. But when your brain says you're not enough, you're not this, you're not that, don't believe it. All right, so Murder at the Mall. On a frigid December evening in 1979, Michelle Martinko attended a dinner at the Sheridan Inn in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Michelle was 18 years old and a senior at Cedar Rapids Kennedy High School. The banquet was for the school choir, of which she was a member. Directly after the event, she decided to drive to the recently opened Westdale Mall, where she had a part-time job. She was carrying $180 in cash and planned on buying a new winter coat. And in 1979, $180 is a lot of money. It's a lot of money now, but you know what I mean. Michelle Martinko was, by all accounts, a happy, well-adjusted teen. The younger of 2 daughters, she maintained a steady A/B average at school and was actively involved in the twirling squad, in the choir, and in high school theater productions. The pretty blonde was known for her stylish dress sense and planned on studying interior design at Iowa State University after she graduated. She was popular without having any particularly close friends. On this December evening, she encountered several classmates and stopped to chat with them. She browsed various stores without finding the coat she was looking for. The last sighting of her was at 9 p.m. Hours later, at around 2 a.m., Albert Martinko made a call to the police and reported his daughter missing. Albert and his wife Janet had spent the last few fretful hours working the phones trying to locate Michelle, who had not come home. Wow, this is a long story. Then, even as police units were being dispatched to look for the missing teen, Albert hit the streets himself, cruising the darkened city in an increasingly frantic effort. Thankfully, it wasn't he who found Michelle, but the police. At around 4 a.m., an officer spotted the missing girl's tan and green Buick Electra in the otherwise empty lot of the Westdale Mall. It was parked in the northeast corner outside of J.C. Penney. Michelle Martinko was inside. She was dead. This was a truly horrific murder. Michelle was seated in the driver's seat, her upper body angled towards the passenger side. Her face and upper torso were covered in blood, which was also liberally sprayed across the car's interior. The medical examiner would count 29 stab wounds inflicted to the chest, neck, and face. 29? Good night. That's a lot. There were also defensive wounds to Michelle's hands, indicating that she had put up a fight for her life. Reconstructing the murder, detectives theorized that Michelle had been attacked as she got into the vehicle. The question was why? That's what I always want to know, why? Michelle hadn't been robbed. Her purse still contained the $180 she had been carrying. There had also been no attempt at a sexual assault. That, together with the cuts to Michelle's face and the overkill employed, suggested someone with a personal motive. Because when someone is stabbed 20, 30, 40, 60, 70 times, it's like a crime of rage, passion. Yeah. So, working that angle, investigators initially focused their attention on Michelle Martinko's inner circle. Was there a disgruntled ex-boyfriend, a classmate she had offended? The answer to those questions was no. Dozens of potential suspects were interviewed, all of them dismissed, many after passing a polygraph. With limited forensics and no eyewitnesses, the investigation was already in trouble. Desperate, the police appealed to the public, generating over 200 new leads. Some friggin' wackadoos, I'm sure. Some of these were quite bizarre. There was a local delinquent who was known to carry a knife and was described as threatening. Problem was, he was still a preteen. There was also a mall employee who appeared to be obsessed with store mannequins. A more viable suspect was a man who had recently served time for a sexual offense. He was interviewed and released after providing an alibi. Well, we know this is going to be a cold case because that's the title of the book. Then, out of nowhere, the police caught a break. A woman came forward to report that she had arrived at the mall in the early hours of December 20th and had spotted two cars parked side by side in the lot. One of those was a green and tan Buick Electra. The other was a nondescript sedan. A man was standing beside the driver's door of the Electra. The witness described him as white, late teens to early 20s, 6 feet tall, and weighing around 170 pounds. She said that he had brown eyes and curly brown hair. Well, Jesus, that could be anybody, right? And you know, whenever I go to a store, get in my car, get out of my car, I don't care what time of day it is, I'm on high alert because people are weird and will do shit. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. This description would be widely distributed in the media, bringing forth a slew of new leads, but not a single viable suspect. It drove the police to increasingly desperate measures. Psychics were consulted and several witnesses interviewed under hypnosis. There was also a reward, $10,000, for information leading to an arrest. It went unclaimed. 1 year, hundreds of interviews, and thousands of man-hours later, no one was any the wiser. Who had killed Michelle Martinko and why remained an unfathomable mystery. The case was cold. Now, what year was this? It was 1979. It is impossible to comprehend the anguish of Albert and Janet Martinko at this time. Their daughter was dead, her young and promising life cruelly snatched away, her final moments endured in terror and pain. Yeah, I'd have a really hard time with that. You would never be able to forget that. Almost as bad was the knowledge that Michelle's killer was still out there, walking the streets unpunished for his terrible act. With the criminal case going nowhere, Albert vented his anger in civil court, filing suit against the owners of the Westdale Mall for not providing reasonable security on the night of the murder. That case would go all the way to the Iowa Supreme Court, where the ruling went against the Martinkos. Albert died in 1995, his wife Janet 3 years later in 1998. So that is not even 20 years later. They would go to their graves never knowing who had taken the life of their beloved Michelle. But the Martinko case, although dormant, was not yet dead. In 2006, so now we're approaching 27 years. In 2006, the Cedar Rapids Police Department received a tip connected to the murder. That would ultimately prove to be a bust, but it did reignite interest in the case. A detective took a fresh look at the evidence and made a stunning discovery. 2 separate blood types had been lifted from the crime scene, one believed to be that of the killer. This was now submitted for testing and gave up a partial DNA profile, which was entered into the Combined DNA Index System, which is CODIS. So yeah, back in 1979, that technology wasn't there, remember? Investigators had high hopes of getting a hit. They drew a blank. The man who had killed Michelle Martinko had not committed another serious crime, at least not in the era of mandatory DNA tests for offenders. This was frustrating, but not a total loss to investigators. They still had the long suspect list that had been developed during the initial investigation, a list containing as many as 80 names. Wow, that's a lot. These individuals now became the subject of a major track and test initiative. More than 60 were eventually screened. The result? No match. So it was back to the drawing board. 10 more years passed. So now we're approaching like 37 years, something like that, during which the advancements in DNA technology were truly mind-blowing. By 2017, there was a private company specializing in DNA phenotyping. Here, experts could take a single strand of DNA and discern from it the person's physical features. Thus, a composite could be compiled not from witness descriptions, but from a suspect's biological material. In this case, the identikit showed a man with blonde hair and blue eyes, contradicting the previous eyewitness description. This was broadly circulated, generating dozens of new leads, but no real break in the case. I mean, it's almost 40 years later. This wasn't the end of the road for the DNA evidence, though. In 2018, the DNA profile was entered into GED Match, a public genealogy website. This has produced results for law enforcement in the past, most notably in the capture of the elusive Golden State Killer, Joseph DeAngelo. In this case, too, it delivered a hit, not to the killer, but to a relative believed to be a second cousin once removed. Now the investigative effort entered the realm of genealogy, with experts constructing a family tree, eventually narrowing their search to 3 brothers, all of whom had grown up in Manchester, Iowa, and still lived in the area. With the potential suspects now in their sights, the police set up surveillance on the brothers, hoping to obtain some item containing their biological material, because that's not against the law. Like, I've seen shows where cops will surveil and pull someone's coffee cup out of the trash. It's trash, right? On October 29th, 2018, an investigator saw one of the brothers, Jerry Lynn Burns, discard a plastic straw after drinking a soda. The item was collected and rushed to the lab where a profile was extracted. It was compared to the blood found on Michelle Martinko's clothing. It matched. So, nearly 4 decades after the murder of Michelle Martinko, the police finally had a suspect in their sights. And this guy probably thought, it's been 40 years, I've gotten away with this, right? But who was Jerry Lynn Burns? His was not a name that had come up in the investigation before, and there was a good reason for that. Burns was a man with a squeaky clean record, a successful businessman, a pillar of the community. A graduate of West Delaware High School in Manchester, he currently owned a powder coating business in the city. Before that, he had worked for John Deere. He had also co-owned a truck stop. Burns was widowed at the time that he came to the attention of the police. His wife, Patricia, had committed suicide in 2008. He had no police record, not even for a misdemeanor. But now Jerry Lynn Burns was suspect number 1 in a long-standing murder investigation. In December 2018, police officers arrived at his business premises in Manchester, armed with a long list of questions that needed answers. Burns was also asked to provide a DNA sample, which he refused until a search warrant was placed in front of him. Submitted for testing, his sample returned the result that investigators had expected. It was a match to the blood found at the murder scene. On December 19th, 2018, 39 years to the day from Michelle Martinko's death, Jerry Lynn Burns was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. Jerry Lynn Burns entered a not guilty plea at his February 2020 trial, with his defense trying every legal maneuver in the book to have the DNA evidence excluded. When this was denied by the judge, the writing was on the wall for Burns. The presence of his blood at the murder scene could not be explained away. The only way that it could have gotten there was if Burns cut himself during the frenzied knife attack. As any homicide investigator will tell you, accidental self-inflicted wounds are quite common in these circumstances. In the end, it took the jury just 3 hours of deliberation to find Jerry Lynn Burns guilty of first-degree murder. Under Iowa law, that meant a mandatory life sentence with no possibility of parole. Burns is currently incarcerated at Anamosa State Penitentiary with the matter under appeal. With the DNA evidence placing him at the crime scene, it seems highly unlikely that a new jury will come to a different decision. But there is still one question that needs to be answered in this tragic case. The question of why. Why did he do it? Why would Jerry Lynn Burns, a man with no other criminal convictions, commit such a savage act of violence against a young woman he did not even know? The answer may lie in a piece of evidence that was suppressed at the trial. It had to do with Burns's internet search history. This was ultimately disallowed by the judge, but provided a disturbing insight into the murder-accused's psyche. Burns liked to visit sites showing women being raped, stabbed, strangled. He also had a thing for necrophilia. That's having sex with dead people, by the way. Perhaps this was his intention when he accosted Michelle Martinko in the parking lot on that fateful December night. Perhaps the result of his actions was far bloodier than he had imagined in his warped fantasies. Perhaps he had run from the scene and been sufficiently traumatized to never repeat the act of murder. Had his response been different, he might well have developed into a serial killer. So, absolutely. How horrible, though, that it was just completely senseless and unnecessary. I would never, ever be able to forget if I found out a family member or a friend had been horrifically murdered like that. I just don't know how you reconcile that in your head. Okay, so let's read a small miracle story as a brain cleanser, right? Okay. While attending Princeton University, Kathy shared a dorm room with 3 roommates. Each one had her fair share of male admirers. In order to maintain some semblance of privacy, the girls would occasionally make arrangements to meet their respective dates at some anonymous location. One summer's evening, Kathy set out on a blind date. She didn't have much faith that it would turn out well, but having agreed to the date, she wanted to keep her word. Kathy walked to the corner of Nassau Street and Washington Road. Her date was expected to be there at 8:00 p.m. Kathy had been told to look for a blue car whose driver would be wearing a fraternity sweater. Everything seemed to go as planned. At a couple of minutes past 8, first of all, he's late, a blue car driven by a young man in a fraternity sweater pulled up alongside the curb. "Sorry, I'm a little late. I got caught in traffic," he said apologetically. "That's all right," Kathy said, pleasantly surprised that her date was good-looking. Sometime after the movie and before dinner, the young man turned to his date and said, "By the way, how do you know Bob?" "Bob? Who's Bob?" said Kathy. "What do you mean, who's Bob?" "Bob is the one who set us up," the young man said, raising a bushy eyebrow that accentuated his questioning glance. "What are you talking about?" Kathy sputtered. "Jim set us up." "Jim?" the young man answered. "Who's Jim?" Oh, can you imagine? A few more who's and what's and what are you talking about, and the puzzle was solved. They realized that another couple must have made arrangements to meet at the same time and at the same place, which meant that they were each out with the wrong date. But is it really? Without skipping a beat, the young man turned to Kathy and said, "Look, I'm having a good time. Want to continue?" "Sure," she said, glad that he had asked, and it's now 10 years later, and they are happily married with 3 beautiful children. So the comment, at times, all we have to do in life is show up, be present, and allow the magic to unfold. Telling you, they were not meant to go on those other dates. That's like, if you guys watch the show This Is Us, I think how Jack and Rebecca had met was that she had went to the bar on a blind date, but the guy didn't show up or something. I forget. And I know I saw a show where that happened. And they wind up getting together and, happily ever after. So, but okay. So thank you for all the well wishes for me feeling better. It does feel better today. It doesn't feel, it's still swollen down there for sure, but it's not quite as horrible and painful. I took Advil very early this morning and I haven't had to take any more today. So that's good. So I'm just hoping that I continue to get better and better as the week goes on. Today is Wednesday. Our job for tomorrow canceled, and I don't know if something else is coming in, but we're on the calendar for Friday. Because I worked so long Monday and Tuesday, my check is already enough that if I have off tomorrow, it's not a big deal. So As always, if you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below, and I will answer them to the best of my ability. Thank you so much for watching and subscribing and spending about 30 minutes of your time with me today, and I will see you in my next video. Bye, guys.